What is up YouTube? How are you guys doing? My name is Peedy and today we are going to take a look at the patch 10.5 notes for League of Legends. I'm going to be doing a complete rundown of all the changes and I'm going to highlight the most important ones and I will give you my opinion on how they are going to change the meta and how they will affect the champions. First of all, I want to thank everyone for all the support and the love lately. The channel has been steadily growing. I have been having a lot of fun making these videos. And I got some really good feedback, so really from the bottom of my heart, I really want to thank you all for watching, for supporting, for subbing, following, all that stuff. Really helps me out a lot, and I have a lot of plans for the upcoming weeks. I'm going to be pushing out more and more content, so stay tuned for that. Obviously, if you are new and you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to not miss any future videos. And if you end up liking this video, hit me up with a like, comment down below what you thought about it. It really helps me out a lot. So let's delve right into these changes. The patch 10.5 notes. Like usual, they start with some skins. We have the Black Frost, Rek'Sai, Renekton, and Alistar skins. The Rek'Sai skin looks really nice. The Renekton and the Alistar skins as well. Like the Black Frost skins in general look really cool. And if I would play Rek'Sai, I would definitely get this skin. Sejuani, I used to play her a lot in the jungle. I don't really think that this Hextech skin looks that amazing, sadly. I saw some videos, I expected more, sorry. I think they could have done a better job. But let's move on to the champion changes, shall we? Alistar, basically he's getting a small buff to his health from 575 to 600, and his Triumphant Roar now is not on a 3-second cooldown after being consumed. Like, these changes are very small. I don't really think like this is going to do much for Alistar at all. There are much better tank supports, obviously. Leona, Nautilus, there are so many better picks. I don't really feel like this is going to do anything. I wish they would do more for Alistar because it's a fun support to play and he can absolutely have his place in the meta. But it just feels like they don't want to overbuff him so he doesn't get too obnoxious. Maybe gets back into the jungle role. I don't know why. I don't really know why they're not doing more for him, but this change, in my opinion, is not gonna do enough for him to push him back into a good role. Further with Amumu. Amumu is getting one of the buffs from patch 10.4 reverted, which is the cooldown on his ult. That's going back on the earlier levels to 150. Amumu got a lot better, obviously, because he got multiple buffs to his Q. He got the Cinderhulk changes, obviously, and the last patch got the buff to his ult, which also made him stop dashes. Apparently, Riot thought that he was getting too strong. I don't really feel like he is. I mean, maybe in lower elos, but in competitive or higher elo, you never see him, like, ever. So, I don't really get why they're doing this. There are still a lot better, there's still junglers that are a lot better than him, so I don't really agree with these changes, but they don't really do much for him. He's still going to be good for low elo. You know, this is a nerf to his early game, but it's not that big. You know, it's not massive. So if you play Amumu and you like him, definitely keep playing him. He's still a lot stronger than he was at the beginning of the season, no question. Next up, Bart. The additional damage he gets per 5 chimes is being nerfed from 15 down to 12. For the early game and like mid game, this is not really going to do much. For the late game, this is going to hurt him a little bit because, you know, he does a lot of damage. Like the machine gun Bart build is pretty strong. He does quite some nice, he does a lot of damage when he pokes you. This is still not going to make him awful or anything. He's still going to be strong. So I don't really feel like it's just a small nerf that won't affect him too much, except for a little bit of less damage or burst in the late game. So overall, still a good pick if you want a poke-heavy, fast support that can do a lot of damage. Let's move on to Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank is getting a tiny nerf, which honestly is not going to make any difference at all. His armor is going down from 40 to 37, which is just laughable. I mean, let's be honest. He's still really good at what he does, which is hitting his Qs, picking off high-priority targets. Same in the laning phase. If he gets a good hook off, especially on the turret, you will most likely kill or get a flash out of one of the opponents. And nerfing his armor by 3 is like basically not going to do anything for him. So I'm not quite sure what that's aimed at. It's kind of ridiculous. They can do a lot of different stuff to him, to make him weaker, but this certainly is not going to do this. Graves, 2 changes. First of all, his magic resist gets increased from 30 to 32. His magic resist growth goes up from 1 to 1.25 per level. Also, his Q is getting a flat mana of 60 and the cooldown reduced by 1 second on each level. For jungle Graves, this is going to mean he's going to be a little bit more viable, picked against more heavy AP comps. He's still not going to be a top tier jungle pick at all. Also with the Q changes, it's going to make his clear a little better. But Graves is just not a good jungler. There are loads of junglers that are a lot better than him. What this might actually do though, which is pretty interesting, this might make him into a solo laner, or pretty good solo laner actually. They also say it here. It will help him in his jungle and laning. So, you know, mid lane Graves, for example, might actually be good with this. Because one of his biggest weaknesses if you play him in lane is you can't really wave clear enough, because your Q is basically the only wave clear you have. You know, if you run out of mana, obviously you won't be able to clear any waves. So this might actually make him into a pretty decent mid pick. I'm interested to see how that will turn out. So stay tuned for that, obviously. Kai'Sa, next up on the list. The Q and the W are being changed. Q damage ratio, the ability power ratio goes down, but the amount of missiles goes up by 2. The W damage goes up, as well as the ability power scaling. The attack power scaling goes down. And the living weapon upgrade, instead of 50% cooldown refunded, it will go to 70% cooldown refunded. So what they're trying to do here is they're trying to buff her AD and her AP separately and not buff both at the same time. So you have to specialize into going AD or AP. The hybrid build is not going to be that amazing. But if that's enough to make her into a strong champion again, or into an S tier pick, I don't know. We will have to see. I'm not good enough on Kai'Sa to really say that, but it's definitely a nice quality of life change, and Kai'Sa mains or people that like playing her definitely will have more fun playing her right now. Kane, he's getting, the orb gain rate is getting changed. Basically, instead of an increase at 8 and 12 minutes, it will now increase constantly every second after 5 minutes, and it will flatten out at 13 minutes. What that's probably going to do is that if you gank at a certain time right now, like at the 7-minute mark or something, it wouldn't be as good if you would gank at like an 8-minute mark. So now the way they change it, it's going to be a little less awkward with your gank timings. And it's going to make getting your form a bit easier and less, you know, clunky or inconvenient, I guess. The W, the decaying slow is getting upped from 60 to 70%. I mean, it's a nice little buff, but nothing game-changing, obviously. Overall, you know, he's actually a pretty good jungler, but he's not really getting played a lot. But if this is really going to do much for him, I don't know. It also really seems like a small change. Sandra, they are buffing her Q. The damage ratio is going from 0.7 of the ability power to 0.8. Obviously, just a small increase. Q is obviously her spammable ability, which she can use a lot. So it's going to help her wave clear a bit better. It's going to help her poke a bit better. She's not really played a lot. She doesn't have a high play rate. She's not a very strong mage in the meta. Again, there was better picks that can be picked instead of her. So is this going to make her a lot better? Meh, I don't think. Again, another change. It seems like an ongoing trend with this patch so far. Again, a small change that might not do too much for her, sadly. Because I like playing her. She's actually a pretty fun champion, to be honest. But this change is not good enough to make her very, very strong and impactful. NiKo is getting a couple of buffs. The attack speed growth is going from 3 to 3.5%. The attack speed ratio is going from 0.645 to 0.67. Not quite sure why they're doing that. I read something about the on-hit NiKo build maybe being good with this. I'm not quite sure because I haven't played NiKo enough to really give you my opinion on that. So we will have to see. The AP build obviously is getting buffed a lot though, because her E and her ultimate are getting an ability power increase. The damage ratio is going from 0.4 to 0.6 on her E. And the shield on her ult is going up by quite a lot. Both the base value as the ability power scaling. This is going to help her quite a bit, because she's not really that amazing in solo lanes right now. It's not going to make her super OP or insane or like highly picked, but it's certainly a nice little buff for her, especially the E is like spammable, right? So you can get some more play out of it, I guess. I think this is actually going to buff support NiKo more than solo lane NiKo. So, you know, we might actually see some more NiKo support. Moving on to Ornn. Ornn is obviously one of the strongest champions right now in the current meta. He is really, really tanky. He can do a lot of damage for a tank. And especially after the 10.4 changes to Sunfire Cape, he got even stronger. The fact that he can upgrade his teammates' items and make them better and give about 1,000 gold in raw stats to his teammates is absolutely insane. They're trying to nerf him this patch. They're doing two things. Well, three things. His W is being nerfed. The brittle proc damage is being lowered from 12 to 20.5 to 10 to 18. The upgrade on his masterwork item for himself is going from level 12 to level 13, so it's +1 level. And his allies can be upgraded from level 14 to 17 instead of 13 to 16. So the W change, and also to a small margin, the masterwork item auto upgrade change is going to hurt his laning phase a little bit. It's going to make champions that are about even with him right now able to do a little bit more against him. But other than that, you know, it's not really that much. He still can do a lot of burst when he hits his full combo. That's not going to change. The fact that he can now upgrade his allies' items 1 level later, that is actually going to make quite a significant damage in the mid game, especially if you're fighting for these, you know, second or third drakes, depending on how the game goes. You won't be able to upgrade your teammates, and especially in solo queue where people just fight, where people never wait for power spikes, for any level caps, for anything. This might actually make quite a big difference. But overall, Ornn is still a really good champion, because the reason you pick him, you know, his tankiness, his engage potential, his upgrades are still there. It's just going to be delayed. So overall, he's just still a really good champion, and he's still absolutely not in a bad spot at all. He will still see a lot of play. Rammus, he got buffed in the last patch with his attack speed and his attack speed ratio. Plus, he obviously got the Cinderhawk buffs. I haven't seen Rammus at all in like, well, I've seen it in like 1 game. I watched tons of streams. You never see him in pro play or anything. So, apparently though, he got a spike in his win rate by like 3 to 4%. So, sure, I guess. And Riot was like, nah, this is too strong, so they're going to nerf him. I don't really agree with this, but they're basically reverting one of his buffs. The attack speed ratio is going back to the old value it was before 10.4. Yeah, I don't know why they do that. I don't know why they nerf Rammus and Amumu again in this patch, while they leave other junglers completely untouched, like for example Zac, who is way stronger in my opinion. Riot just keeps nerfing and buffing champions that don't need nerfs and buffs, while other champions absolutely are in desperate need of nerfs. So yeah, I don't agree with this change, honestly. Let's move on. Sett. Sett is getting some nerfs. His armor is being reduced. His health regen is being reduced. His health regen growth is being reduced. So this will do two things. He's not that amazing of a jungler, but this is going to make his jungle obviously a lot weaker as well, because losing 4 armor is going to make him struggle more with clearing. Also in the solo lane, if he's laning, it's going to make him weaker, especially against AD champions, while he's already pretty vulnerable to being kited by ranged champions. So this should make it even easier for certain champions to counter him. Overall, he's still in a pretty good spot though, because, you know, later on in the game, he still does what he does well. You know, that doesn't really change because of that. Then his ultimate, the slow is being reduced from 1.5 seconds to 1 second. I don't really feel like that's that massive, but, you know, people might disagree. In my opinion, that's not really going to do a whole lot to him, at least the ultimate change. Sivir. Well, Sivir is not really in a very good spot right now. She's not a very good AD carry at all. They are buffing her Q, and they are giving her minimum movement speed on her ult from 20% to 20 to 30 scaling per level. I don't really see this do a lot, sadly. Sivir is still not going to be good. There is still other AD carries that are way better. So my opinion, it's a nice buff, but it's way not enough. It's not enough to make her to get her back to a good position in the meta. Sona. Well, Sona obviously got nerfed in 10.4 a lot because her base attack damage was lowered, her attack damage growth was lowered, and her E self movement was lowered by a lot. They did that to make sure that solo lane Sona is not a thing anymore, and to make her just a support. By doing that, they ended up nerfing support Sona actually, which you know, makes no sense because Sona is not a very, very OP, super strong support anyway. So what they're doing now is they're reverting that change. They're putting the values back from before 10.4 to make sure that Sona won't be able to solo lane anymore. They're doing a different change, which we will see in a little bit. Out of range cast changes. Right now, two things can happen if you use an ability on a champion and you're not in range to cast it. Either the champion will just use the ability and cast as far as he can go, range-wise, or he will move as far as he has to move to be able to cast the ability to the point that you clicked on. What they're doing is they're making three abilities, they're changing three abilities, which is Misfortune's E, Syndra's Q, and Varus's E, to use the cast at max range behavior. So for example, if you use Misfortune's E, and she is not in range to reach the point you clicked on the map, then she will no longer run towards it until she is in range and use it. She will just stand still and use it and go as far as she can go. Overall, this doesn't really change a lot. If you're used to how one of these three abilities work right now, you just have to get used to how it works from 10.5 on, which is not really a big change, so that's okay. Jungle champions. Darius, Mordekaiser, and Poppy getting some jungle buffs. Darius' hemorrhage damage to monsters being buffed. Darkness Rise damage to monsters is being buffed for Mordekaiser. And Poppy is getting a nice damage on her Hammer Shock max health damage versus non-champions. Obviously, they're trying to make certain champions more viable in the jungle. So far, with very little success, because the champions they're buffed haven't really seen a lot of play in the jungle. Darius, this is just going to make his solo lane stronger, in my opinion. You can just walk into the jungle and clear clamps even quicker. Mordekaiser, I don't think is a good jungler. Poppy is actually one of these champions that might benefit the most from it, because Poppy is already pretty decent in the jungle. She's not really played a lot in lower elos and also not in EU regions, but a lot more in Korea as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know. And this is actually making her a lot stronger, so that's actually nice. So if you enjoy Poppy and you want to try her in the jungle, go for it. Absolutely. Next one. Turret plating is getting changed. The changes are, the gold per plate is going from 120 to 160. The turret plates take 17% reduced damage from ranged champions. And the outer turret armor and MR is getting reduced, but the bulwark resistance is getting up. So basically what they're trying to do here is they want to make top lane stronger, especially for melee champions. They want to make it more punishing to roam, because you lose more gold if you don't take the turret plates. And also they want to get this whole trade-off of, you know, ganking bot and setting up for dragon be, you know, less good. Because as a group push, the bulwark resistance is going up, right? 45 instead of 35 per knee by enemy. So pushing a turret, an outer turret as a group is going to be harder, while as a melee champion, if you are alone, you can push turrets faster and it gives more gold. I'm not sure that this is going to change all that much. The biggest change, in my opinion, is going to be for melee champions top lane that are already winning their lane. They're going to snowball even harder, right? So if you have a top lane bruiser who is winning, he's going to get more gold. He's going to be able to push down the turret easier and get first turret gold. So this might actually, in certain aspects, in certain games, pull the jungler up more towards the top lane. But if this is going to make a big meta change or a big change at all, it's very difficult to tell, and this is really something we will have to keep an eye on, both in pro play as also in solo queue. Then there is a couple of item changes. First up, the Blade of the Ruined King. They are changing the health steal, the life steal, from 8 to 12%, only for melee champions. This is pretty nice, pretty big actually, right? It's 50% buff to the life steal, and this is definitely going to make the couple of melee champions that actually build a Bork make them a lot stronger, because you're going to be healing more and be doing more damage in that regard. But Bork is still an item that's not really built on that many champions. It kind of fell out of favor, so we will see. But then again, I mean, it is a good buff for melee champions because it only applies to melee. The same thing happens for Ravenous Hydra and Tonic Hydra. Ravenous Hydra is getting 50% more lifesteal from 12 to 18%, a bigger active radius, and the active center point is being changed from 125 distance in front of you to at your basic attack range up to 200 distance. So this is obviously a very nice buff for all champions that build Hydra, and it's going to make them even stronger at split pushing. So all these champs like Fiora, for example, will definitely benefit from this. It will be even more obnoxious to play against. Tonic Hydra is getting some nice buffs as well. The primary passive damage and the passive damage to the secondary targets, both are being upped from 5 plus 1% to 5 plus 1.5%, and from 40 to 2.5% to 40 plus 3% of max health. Another melee change, so they apparently really want to make bruisers a lot stronger. So we have the tower changes with the turret plating. We have Blade of the Ruined King for melee champions only, and Ravenous Hydra and Tonic Hydra, all for melee champions and bruisers. So I think we will see them rise in ranks a lot more. So I don't really know why they're doing that, because a lot of bruisers are already very good, right? So I'm not quite sure what the point of this is, because this is just going to make certain champions even stronger and probably like almost broken. Tonic Hydra, for example, Shen is already getting a lot stronger because of the Sunfire changes and just the changes in general to the meta. Tonic Hydra is going to make him even better. Warwick, for example, who already got buffed because of Cinderhulk, is pretty much building Tonic Hydra all the time, right? So that's also going to make Warwick a lot stronger. So yeah, we will have to see, but definitely expect more bruisers, more melee, brawlers in your games than you already have. A couple of item changes. Spell Thief's Edge and the Spectral Sigil are getting changed, so they will only proc if there is an ally champion within 2000 range. This is obviously done so certain supports can no longer go solo lane and abuse this item, like Sona, for example. This is a big nerf to all these champions that use these items. If it's going to completely destroy them, I don't really know. We will see. Because even after the nerfs in the last patch, people were still playing Sona top lane. You know, even with all the nerfs and people saying, well, Sona is that now. Well, people were still playing her and she was still winning games. So it's obviously a nerf to some of the champions that do that, but if it's going to destroy these kind of things or completely push them out of the meta, I don't think so. We will see. People always find ways around it, so we will have to see. But this definitely will make them weaker. Boots of Mobility. They will now cost 1,000 gold instead of 900 gold, which is a pretty... It doesn't seem like a lot, right? It's just 100 gold. But certain champions that really rush these boots, like for example in the mid lane, a Kiana, often Pantheon can do that, a Pyke, they will now need to farm an extra wave or two, depending on how many minions they get, before they can actually go back to buy this, which is a nerf to them overall. This is also a nerf to supports, right? Because most supports build mobility boots. So they might back and not be able to buy them, or they might have to wait with backing, or somehow get more gold, right? So this is actually a bigger nerf than it seems, because this will delay the boots for a lot of champions. So this is actually quite a substantial nerf. Boots of Swiftness, movement speed going from 55 to 60. I mean, yeah, it's not really a big buff, obviously. And I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to push Boots of Swiftness into a better spot. So right now there's pretty much no reason to go Swiftness over mobility boots. But now they give 5 extra speed and these cost 100 more. There might be some trade-offs where people are like, actually this time I'm going Swifties. We will see. It's still not a very big buff. Maybe if they would have added a little bit more movement speed on top of it, it would have mattered more. But overall, we will see. We will see. I think that most of the time people will still build mobility boots. I don't really see this change that much. The rest of these changes are about ARAM, which is not really in the scope of this video, because this is about Summoner's Rift, and the Eternals being implemented, which you can read more about on the Riot website, and they have a video about it, and a bunch of bug fixes. And they just showcase the Renekton, the Alistar, the Rek'Sai, and the Sejuani skin. This is it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this helped you out. I hope you liked it. If you did end up liking the video, hit me up with a like and maybe share it with some friends. If you agree or disagree with certain changes, or if you want to add anything in the comments, tell me which champion are you going to pick up, which champion are you absolutely going to ban. Do you love these changes? Do you think they're dumb? Like, just let me know in the comments. I will absolutely reply to all of them. And obviously, if you like my content and you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. It really, really helps me out. And I really hope to see you all in the next video. Take care all. Bye-bye.